there are salaried folks and then there are self-employed folks. What are the things that self-employed people should keep in mind when planning for retirement, since the gig economy is rising in terms of stature and covering more people? So for those who are self-employed, what do you think they should keep in mind when planning for retirement?
Let's look at it objectively. And what is the difference between a self-employed guy and a guy like us, a traditional guy who gets a salary at the end of the day? The self-employed guy knows that he's not going to get a paycheck at the end of the month, right? So, that changes the way he thinks, and that's, I think, the most important thing. I've had extensive discussions with a lot of these self-employed guys, lawyers, doctors, tech consultants, name them. And there are two personality traits that I see in most of these people. And the first is the belief that their practice will only get better. Good times or bad times, the practice will keep getting better. And therefore, there is enough time on their side to save for retirement. Because tomorrow will be a better day and next month will be a better month and I will earn more, and therefore that would be the best time to start for planning for retirement. And that, I think, is one of the personality traits that nearly all of them have. And the second thing I think is that nearly all of them believe that time is not against them. Like Lawai was saying, everybody believes that it's going to be a 100-year life, including the financial advisors like Dhirendra and Lawai. And if it's going to be a 100 years life, self-employed guys have this belief that I've got a lot of time on my side to invest. I can start at 50, 60 because I'm going to work till 100. So I think, given those two personality traits, I think there are a couple of suggestions that I would have to self-employed, and I presume there are a large number of them out here, Gautam, who are self-employed. The first is, find some, me time to sit back and say, let me look at my personal finances as opposed to my, business finances or whatever it is. Very few of them actually, take out me time. The second is, please set up an automatic payment route into your retirement accounts. We at the NPS have it, the PPF has it, the mutual funds have it. But if you set up an automatic payment route, you tend to address a lot of these problems. But when you're setting it, be very careful about a couple of things. One is, don't set the bar too high. If you say I'm going to put in, 25% of what I earn this month or whatever it is, sometimes the bar is so high that you tend to sort of drop out. So set the bar at a reasonable level and just let it remain out there. And if you set up that automatic payment route, technology, as Bhatt was saying, is there today. You can sort of keep putting in money through your bank accounts, DRemit, whatever. The third thing is, I think, build in discipline to say that when I've got windfall, I will put in at least 25% of that into my retirement account. Very few people do that, because when they get a windfall, what they go and do is buy a Mercedes, especially self-employed guys. So if you don't do that, possibly you will get closer to, planning for retirement. And, as both Dhirendra and was saying, if you ring fence your retirement savings, don't use it for other things. I think you're halfway there. And I think lastly, on a much lighter note, for all those macho self-employed males who are here, if you can't do it, please ask your wife to do it. I'm sure she'll do it better than you.
Let's see how many take your advice to heart. But again, it's very important, as you mentioned, to delineate the line between expense and investment. You get a windfall, make sure it's also invested into your future rather than spending it all into your present. Bhavdeep, coming to you, you mentioned that, as investors grow older, they become more conservative. So in terms of investment strategies, how do things change once they cross the threshold of retirement, considering now we have such a wide expanse of investment options? Once, say, you cross the threshold of retirement, how do investment strategies themselves change?
Sure, Gautam. So there are basically quite a few strategies, but let me outline two of them. One is the bucket strategy. Essentially, just like any conventional financial planning tool would suggest, that identify your short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs, and accordingly, you kind of allocate your assets with a combination of conservative, asset class like fixed income deposits and debt mutual funds and equities, in different proportions for your short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs. And I think this is more relevant for people who have good enough corpus and, as they call, teenagers, essentially senior citizens who want to live like teenagers. So I think that set of people or the community would find it, and particularly if you have good enough corpus, you started your career with some hardships in 70s or 80s, and you have kind of been able to build a good enough corpus, and then if your corpus is good enough to outlive you for 100 years provision, inflation adjusted and medical expense cost adjusted, then this is the bucket approach one could look at. Alternate approach is kind of invest in asset allocation products, for mutual funds, for example, including product categories like balanced advantage fund or some of the other asset allocation funds, and keep withdrawing from systematically. So there is a facility called systematic withdrawal plan, and there is I'm sure many of you would be aware, there is a thumb rule of 4%. So essentially, as long as you kind of withdraw 4% of your corpus, that's fine. I think that can kind of provide you for, I think there is a calculation about 87, 88 years. And as Dhrendra mentioned, I think we are living in an environment where the interest rates are low and expected to remain at a lower end for many, many years to come, with so many structural changes in the economy. And with that in mind, one could kind of look at 3 to 4% of withdrawal every month. So these are the broadly two strategies I would like to sort of highlight. Also, the fact that because if you are healthy, for example, and you have inclination and situation permitting, one could also look at part-time work. I think that's another trend that we are seeing. People don't retire so early. So that's another approach. And lastly, I mean, the one peripheral approach is the which is not still very popular, but very significant in Western world, is the annuities, buying any annuities from insurance companies. So these are some of the approaches, one investment strategies one can adopt post retirement, given the individual situation.